YouTube! How's it going? Oh, welcome to Trip Boomers, Tech-Bodge Emporium. I am your host, Trip Boomer. This is going to be a bit of a talking head, a bit of a ranty one, to be honest. But yeah, we need to stop doing a couple of things, right? Especially leading up to the 5060 Ti launch and the 5060 launch and the 9060 launch. Like, look, I need you guys to stop, firstly, blaming the wrong fucking people, right? Look, I, like everyone else, is more than willing to hate on Nvidia when they're being pricked. Because more often than not, Nvidia are being absolute fucking arseholes, right? Jensen, yes, you are a master of that stage, but you're an arsehole, and so is your company, and you're usually taking the fucking piss, right? Everyone just, and the problem is, at the minute, the people we should be blaming are the AIBs. Because if we're going to blame Nvidia, we also have to blame AMD for the exact same fucking thing. Because when it comes to the pricing, the same thing is happening regardless of the card, regardless of the manufacturer. So the fact that the AIBs are crying about Nvidia not leaving enough margin for them to make any money, so they have to charge you too much with their crocodile fucking tears. Like, and you guys are gobbling it up because you can't wait to hate Nvidia for something. So you all gobble the fuck out of it. But at the end of the day, yeah, stop sniffing the fucking Kool-Aid. Because at the end of the day, yeah, if you're going to blame Nvidia for that, you have to also blame AMD for the exact same fucking thing. Because the exact same thing is happening to the AMD cards as it is happening to the Nvidia cards. What is the common denominator in those two situations? The fucking AIB companies. And I would just like to point out that the fact that you lot all just gobble up the fact that the AIBs are like, oh, but they don't leave enough margins for us. Seriously? You really think that big ass corporations like Asus and Gigabyte and MSI can't organise a fucking deal with Nvidia? You think they're just like, oh yeah, we'll make your GPUs for you. Oh, you're going to give me £20? You're going to give me £20? Yee. Shut up. They're making money on their cards. They're not fucking retards. They're some of the biggest corporations on the freaking planet. Of course they've got deals in place. Of course they're making money on every single fucking card. And look, I'm not trying to say that these AIBs can't charge a little extra for their overclocked models or their fancy ARGB models. And yeah, it can go up a little bit more when it's fancier. Do you know what I mean? I expect like a $50 to $150 markup for something, for a fancy model. Like, I'm not going to start attacking the Astral because it's more expensive than the Prime, right? I'm not going to attack that, although I think that gap is a bit big. And also, on water-cooled cards, you need to put into perspective that if you were going to get an MSRP card and you were going to water-cool it, now, I'm not saying adding it into a water-cooled loop, I'm saying you were going to water cool it in the same fashion that they're doing for you already pre-packaged, right? It would cost you maybe $300-400 because you would have to buy a radiator, you would have to buy fans for that radiator, you would have to buy fittings for that radiator, pipework, a block and a pump, right? So either you're going to fucking spend next to nothing on some fucking AliExpress crap and have it look like a bag of dog shit in your case, or you're going to spend premium so you get a nice pretty block and then you get a nice radiator, you've got decent fans on it, you want nice fittings, you're going to get decent tubing for those fittings, you want a nice quiet pump. You're going to be costing like $350-400 to just literally strap a water cooling loop to a card. So paying an extra $350 to $300 to $400 for a water-cooled version of a card, I don't think that is outrageous, because if you think about it, that one comes with friggin' warranty, and it's gonna look the part, you know. They've gone and done all the design work, so I don't mind water-cooled units being plus $300-400 on top of the MSRP card. I don't mind cards like the Astral existing, or like, you know, your fancy cards with your ARGB and stuff. I don't mind those existing, but the fact that the Prime, Asus's supposed MSRP model card, is 900 quid, which is $150 above, and that's what they say they're releasing. It's more like $950, so it's like $200 above MSRP. That is a fucking problem. And that is Asus. Gigabyte are doing the same thing, and so are fucking MSI. Oh, that is all three of them taking the piss out of you guys, taking the piss out of gamers, right? Because it's a win-win situation for them. Because not only do they get to overprice you and overcharge you, they can also lean on the fact that they know that you fucking hate Nvidia and you love to hate Nvidia, and they know for the fact that every YouTuber on the freaking planet is going to put headlines of Nvidia taking the piss with pricing, because that's what gets clicks. And they're just literally overcharging you, kicking their feet back and laughing because all of you guys are just running around like mindless idiots, buying their overpriced cards anyway, and then blaming Nvidia for it, when Nvidia aren't even the ones over fucking charging you. It's the AIBs that are. So, the first and foremost, could we please just start blaming the right fucking people? Look, I don't care if I have to buy a Gainwood card or a PNY card. I've had a PNY card before, it was alright. Or a fucking pallet card. I don't care, right? If those cards can be close, really close to MSRP, and the Asus, Gigabyte and MSI ones aren't, or whatever, I'm going to go with the ones that are closer to MSRP. I don't mind paying a little extra for an AIB card over a Founders Edition, because I like to mod my cards and stuff, and they're easier to mod than a Founders Edition. Okay? So, firstly, can we please stop blaming the wrong fucking people? Hate on the right people. I personally am not going to use Asus, Gigabyte or MSI in any rigs that I build for me or anyone else. As it stands, I'm not using their products. And I don't mean just GPUs. I mean, I'm literally not using any of their products. Because why would I? If they're going to take the piss out of gamers like this, why would I use their products? So that's the first thing. We need to start blaming the right people, and the AIBs are the right people in this situation to be blaming, not necessarily Nvidia, because if you're going to blame Nvidia, you have to blame AMD just as hard, because the exact same thing is happening to their cards.
Like and subscribe. Thank you.
Next up, we need to talk about 8GB cards. We need to talk about 8GB cards. Right? Now, I know that every 3060 head, every 2080 head, even the 1080 heads, and the 3070s, 3070 Ti's, I know you're all there, got your 8GB cards, and you're like, there's nothing wrong with 8GB cards. No, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with an 8GB card. But in 2025, the only 8GB cards that you should be buying are basically the second-hand cards or the leftovers, right? Because you're saving a buck. There is no future in a brand new 8GB card. And at the end of the day, yeah, until you stop buying them, they won't stop making them, right? Let me put it into perspective. People keep thinking that the 3060 12GB was because I've heard so many times people saying, oh, it's because the creators got narky about the idea of an 8GB one and all this. No, it fucking wasn't. Look, if you thought that for a second that Nvidia decided to put a 12GB 3060 out there because creators whinged, what the fuck is the 4060 doing there? And what the fuck is the 5060 doing there? The reason the 5060 is an 8GB card is because regardless of the 4060 shouldn't have had 8GB, and the 4060 Ti 8GB shouldn't have existed either, and the 4600 shouldn't have existed either. You guys still went out and fucking bought them, right? I don't for a second think that anyone was daft enough to upgrade from a 3060 to a 4060. But before we go into that, let me kind of put into perspective, right, why the 3060 was a 12 gigabyte card. You see, up to that point, 192-bit was basically the kind of small, the small end of the bus width that they were working with at the time, right? If you go back as far as like a 1060, even the 3 gigabyte 1060 was on a 192-bit bus, and it was easier and cheaper to put 12 gigabytes on a 192-bit bus at that given moment in time than it was for them to have the bigger bus bandwidth of 256 for 8 gigabytes. However, I would also like to point out that the 3060 8 gigabyte was basically the birth of the 4060. That was them testing the water to see if they could get away with a 128-bit bus. Because that's unless you're going back to like olden times, like where maybe that is, as far as I can tell, is basically the first time they used that 128-bit bus, and that's that cut down 3060 8 gig. That's the first time they used it. So the 12 gigabytes was just that 192-bit was their small bus bandwidth, and it was cheaper for them to use something that they already knew and put 12 gigabytes on it than use a more expensive bus bandwidth board and setup with 8 gigabytes on it. That's why you got a 12 gigabyte 3060. We were lucky, because then they tested the 128-bit bus with a 3068 gigabyte, and then the next generation we get a 4068 gigabyte, because obviously the 3068 gig sold and still worked enough. So that's why that happened. That's why we had a 12 gigabyte 3060. It was luck. But at the end of the day, yeah, then both Nvidia and AMD are not going to stop releasing 8 gigabyte cards at like over $300 and stuff until you stop buying them. Like straight up, just stop buying new 8 gigabyte cards. I'm not telling you to not go out and buy a 2080, or if you get a bargain price on, if you get a bargain price on a second hand like 2080, 3070, 3070 Ti or whatever, anything like that. I am not telling you to not go out and buy that card. Go out and buy that card. If it's a good price for a good card, go out and buy it. All I'm asking you to do is not buy the 5060, not buy the 8 gig 5060 Ti, and not buy any 9060 series that is an 8 gigabyte card. That is all I'm asking you guys to not do. If you just don't do that, if you literally ignore those cards, they will stop making them. Don't for a second think that you can't, as gamers, you can't do something to change these corporations' minds. Because let's be honest, one of the only times we've ever seen them backpedal on a card, and we're talking Nvidia here, who don't backpedal at all. They usually double down when they're doing something dickheadish, right? However, right, the fact that the 12 gigabyte 4080 doesn't exist is because no one bought them. They released them and they didn't sell any. No one bought them, so they backpedaled and then released it as a 4070 Ti 12 gig, which then rather quickly got replaced by a 16 gig 4070 Ti Super. However, the 12 gigabyte 4080 doesn't exist because gamers like yourselves did not go out and buy them, and nothing but bad press came of them. If you do the exact same thing with the 5060 Ti 8 gig, and any 9060 class card that is an 8 gigabyte card, if you literally refuse to buy a new 8 gigabyte card, they will stop making them. And if they stop making 8GB cards, guess what else we get rid of? 128-bit bus. The only ways we would get that is if they just decided to give us 16GB instead. But what do you reckon the chances are that Nvidia are going to choose to stay on a 128-bit bus and give you more VRAM when they could just give you a 12 VRAM card on a 192-bit bus? So for me, all I ask of you is stop blaming the wrong people. Stop blaming the AIB. Stop blaming the top 3, because they're the worst of the bunch, and the very, very worst of them being ASUS. It's ASUS, it's Gigabyte, and it's MSI that are taking the fucking piss out of you as gamers and are overcharging you, and you need to stop blaming them and not Nvidia, because if you're going to blame Nvidia for it, you need to blame AMD as well. And secondly, stop buying new 8GB cards. Please stop buying them. Even in the pre-builts, stop buying them. More often than not, the difference in price in these pre-builts I've looked, and usually that jump from an 8GB card to the 16GB card is not a lot. Maybe like $60, and I know things can be a bit tight, but just wait a month. Buy the 16GB one. It's going to last you a bit longer. It's going to be worth more money when you come to sell it to get a new card. Just stop buying 8GB cards, new ones anyway. Please stop it, so we can get rid of them. And stop blaming Nvidia when it's definitely the AIBs at the moment that we need to be focusing our hate on, because they're taking the piss. I need you guys to stop buying ASUS, MSI and Gigabyte. We all need you guys to stop doing it. We need all of you guys to just not buy the cards if they're that overpriced. You should not be buying a basic card at $100, $200 over MSRP from the retailer. Not scalped, from the fucking retailer. So the AIBs are scalping you. It shouldn't happen. So stop. If you stop buying them, the price comes down. It's just how it works. So I put it to you guys. Anyways, I've finished ranting at you now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Love you, bye.